Hey there, singing to the Lord. I read my devotionals. And today's episode for 325 is being recorded on 326 because I reveled yesterday in my sister's comment about an old video that she was watching. And at the same time she was watching that old video and commenting, I was eating an egg. That was so good, and I loved the egg. It reminded me of this movie Fury with Brad Pitt, where they ate an egg and it looked so yummy. Not that they cooked it, and it looked good, but that, the scene builds this desire for this egg because, of course, they're all starving and in war. And it, unfortunately, was a scene with a lot of trauma about the war and killing horses and all the men they killed. And I thought about the Bible that we'd been reading and how it upsets me when all the killing is going on and everything. And I told my wife about it, and we saw the scene. It was graphic. Well, then after my wife had left for work, I looked and I saw a message from my sister, a comment that she had watched an old episode of Singing to the Lord. And that old episode, let's see, I thought I had it open, but I've got so many tabs open. I couldn't figure out where she meant whatever she was commenting. Just a supportive comment, but I was like, I wonder where she was. So I thought I would review the whole movie, the video myself, right? And when I was watching it, it was the day that I read the Bible about the horses being hamstringed. It was Chyros moment is what you call it. So there's that. And I realized that the weapons of war, I wondered, why did they destroy those chariots and kill the horses that way? Well, the reason was because God didn't want them to take these tools of might and use them as, an idolization of their power. He wanted to keep them knowing, that it was the power of the Lord. Oh, so many things have been happening in my life. What glorious miracles the Lord gives me. Songs and subjects. I'll read the books, and if anything comes up, I'll tell you. So always be sure that if you don't have the time to watch the video, I usually give a nice description with the help of the AI assistant and bookmarks and things like that, because you just never know what I'm going to come up with. And sometimes it's there at the end of the video or somewhere in the middle. Yeah, and it helps. I enjoy it myself. Of course, that's why I started recording, was because I experienced so many miracles with the Lord, and I wanted to see sometimes, because I forget. Here's God's little devotional. Most men forget God all day and ask Him to remember them at night. Evening and morning and noon, will I pray and cry aloud, and He shall hear my voice. Psalm 55:17. Thank you, Lord, indeed. Matter of fact, I had such a great, if this video was today rather than, today, it would be today that I was with my friend Juan. I gave him a ride home. He came over on his bike. He was talking to the priest, which the church is just a couple blocks away. And so he stopped by here afterward. And I gave him a ride home because I was going to the... I always forget the name of the place. Well, I worked at the Chevy dealer down there. It used to be a Chevy dealer. Now it's Habitat for Humanity. Restore. And I met a gal that's volunteering there named Allison. So she had placed these little tiny Jesuses, which I don't have one to show you because I have one in my truck, but the rest, she gave me a little handful of these baby Jesuses. Well, they aren't baby Jesus, but they're tiny. And on his swash or whatever, it says Jesus loves you. They had a pulpit for sale in the back there. It's only $15, but I don't know what I would do with it. And but there's a little Jesus on there, and I thought, hey, I want just one of these. And they were like, oh, she's giving them away for free. She likes to leave them and give them away and stuff. So I gave them away at church last night, which is actually today's date of the video. Anyway, those are nice things that were happening. It says here, many people revere Francis of Assisi, the 13th century saint, known for his very simple lifestyle and deep love of the poor. He founded the Franciscan order, restored numerous dilapidated Italian chapels, and helped countless needy people. What most people don't know, however, is that Francis spent most of his life not doing good works, but in prayer. St. Bonaventure wrote about him, whether walking or sitting within doors or without, at toil or at leisure, he was so absorbed in prayer, he seemed to have devoted not only his whole heart and body, but also his whole heart and time. Francis regularly set aside hours throughout the day, which he called appointments with God, and he never missed one. Even though he had serious eyes, stomach, spleen, liver problems, on one occasion, as Francis traveled through the large town of Borgo on a donkey, people pressed in upon him from all sides to touch his garments. Francis was so absorbed in prayer that when he arrived at his destination some time later, he asked when they were going to get to Borgo. No matter how busy we are, we must never become too busy to pray. It is our prayer life that gives lasting meaning to everything else we undertake. Prayer, constant prayer. Not to brag, but I do a constant prayer where I just see people and things, and I go, oh, Lord, thanks for that blue truck. I hear the sound of a car go by that sound like a hot rod I liked or something. I'd be like, Lord, thank you for blessing them so that I could be blessed in hearing it. That kind of thing. And so because I'm doing that, when I pulled up at the Restore yesterday, there was a dog outside tied up to the guardrail there near the door. And I thought, Lord, is that a vicious animal? It didn't look it. I thought, Lord, is that a vicious animal? And at that time, the dog sat down. And I didn't think of that as like the Lord is commanding it to show me it's docile or whatever, but that is what happened. And so I got out and I said, hello, beautiful creature of the Lord. Something like that, praise God. And I walked inside smiling, and I said to the ladies, apparently Allison, but at the time I hadn't met her and didn't realize. And I was like, oh, there's a beautiful pup, out there. It was a full-grown dog. It was a beautiful dog because that's what you treat. They're all puppies, It was a sweet dog, and they go, oh yeah, somebody's dog's out there, because they didn't know whose it was or whatever. And then a fella walked up and goes, yeah, it's my dog, but I didn't know how you felt about him, so I left him out there. Her, might have been her dog, and so they let him bring her in, and we said hello. I can't remember her name right now. Anyway, and I thought, you know what, puppy? I set you free. I prayed for you and got your freedom. Yeah. Not to boast about me, but just as an example of, well, your prayer is powerful. The Lord loves you, and he wants to. Well, that's what it says. It says he loves you and wants you to ask things like that. I think it didn't say, Dean, go pray for a dog, but it says if you align with what he does, his will is, then consider it done. And well, he loves his animals, doesn't he? Apparently. He loved that little doggy. I can't remember her name. Well, I only just met her. And so, at the name of Jesus, we get a new name for Jesus every day, the 25th of March. Jesus is the fairest. To the eye and the mind of the true believer, Jesus has surpassing beauty. His is a pure, fresh quality which is desirable in every way. He says, as you turn away from the worldly loves, you will see the deep love I have for you. I delight in you and want you to be part of that fairest one, my chosen bride. Behold, thou art fair, my beloved, yea, pleasant also. Our bed is green. Song of Solomon 1:16. Ooh, they're all afraid of that one. Don't you realize we're all his bride? I think. And I'm not talking about the theology of it, because I don't know that stuff. But, aren't we not the adulterous generation? Now, some people think he's talking to the people before him, but I felt like we're an adulterous generation, we creation. All of us, incomplete. Because adultery is the thing. the choosing to, when Adam chose Eve, well, her name wasn't Eve, though, it says her, woman. He chose woman over God when he let her take that fruit. People think that she took it, and I think that he kind of set her up to take it. Maybe it was, I think about it, and I think maybe Adam wanted it and used her even. You think? Because she was not there when God said not to eat of that tree. And then she was there, and she was not named Eve yet, and she went and was tempted by Satan, and did take the fruit, and did give it to her husband, who did eat it. And that was the way he put it to God, too. She gave it to me, and I did eat. Almost being a conniving guy, kind of that way myself in my life, right? I could see myself doing something like that, thinking I was all fine and divine, and then using somebody that way to get what I wanted. I sure can. You adulterous generation, you will have only the sign of Jonah, as if that was nothing. It's a wonderful sign, Lord, thank you. And I told you before, Jonah's Jesus. Well, the whale. Is this Jonah in the whale, or is this us in Jesus? Both a safe space made for us. Here is Springs in the Valley, March 25th. Or pay a 2-pager. Fill up that which is behind of the afflictions of Christ. Colossians 1:24. The suggestion is this: all ministry for the master must be possessed of the sacrificial spirit of the master. Indeed. If Paul is to help the redemption of Rome, you've got to pull Saul's plank out of Paul's eye, right? Well, he became Paul when he was blinded, right? And then that was removed. Awesome. Yeah. If Paul is to help in the redemption of Rome, he must himself incarnate the death of Calvary. If he is to be a minister of life, he must die daily. The spirit of Calvary is to reincarnate in Ephesus, in Athens, in Rome. The sacrificial succession is to be maintained through the ages, and we are to fill up that which is behind of the sufferings of Christ. Here then is a principle. The gospel of a broken heart demands the ministry of blessing hearts. As soon as we cease to bleed, we cease to bless. When our sympathy loses its pangs, we can no longer be the servants of the passion. I do not know how any Christian service is to be fruitful if the servant is not primarily baptized in the spirit of a suffering compassion. We can never heal the needs we do not feel. Tearless hearts can never be heralds of the passion. We must bleed if we would be the ministers of the saving blood. We must, by our own suffering sympathies, fill up that which is behind of the suffering of Christ. Are we in succession? Dr. J.H. Jowett. He's probably some super smart guy, theologian type. And forgive me for circumventing all their wisdom, but it seems to me that they forget they are not the ones that do the healings. And so for them to sit here and say, how can we do a healing of what we don't understand? But you don't do it. At best, you are a channel for the Lord. Now, he might well do it for you. But I'm that young, ignorant one. Don't make me your pastor. I might be caught up in that leaven of the Pharisee. Although I felt it before, and the Lord's with me and helps me stay away from it. Ignatius said, when facing the lions in the arena, I am a grain of God. Let me be ground between the teeth of lions, if I may thus become bread and feed God's people. Were such martyred lives wasted, thrown away? Is any life wasted that becomes seed corn to produce bread for the world? No. But it hurts our tender intellect to think of the death and killing all the time. The way to make nothing of our lives is to be very careful of them. But the Lord will turn you, or I will turn to the Lord. Well, I only love because he loved me, right? So it's kind of a weird circle, isn't it? The way to make nothing of our lives is to be very careful of them. The way to make our lives an eternal success is to do with them just what Christ did with his. Watch the opportunities to fill up that which remains behind of the afflictions of Christ. See how many of us can show him wounds that worship him. Seed Thought Calendar. That seed has been coming up today in my studies. Excuse me, I'm sitting here so long. Ugh. I'm not sure if I should tell you though until it's tomorrow's recording. But there was a priest guy online that fames himself a theologian and everything, turned YouTuber. And so it'd be quite hard to argue him. People don't want to generally hear. But I worked on a post in hopes that whoever might be watching his video might not fall into his trap. Because even if he couldn't see himself, it was a definitely behind me Satan type moment. He said the fear of the Lord is wisdom, and it is the beginning of wisdom. It is. But he was saying that God commanded us to fear him, and he certainly did not. And through all my research of the day, I could not find anywhere where God commanded us to fear him. I found plenty where he commanded us to fear not, for I am with you. And I whipped up an explanation for the audience, and since I mentioned it, I might read it. But tune in tomorrow. I'll put it on that one, maybe. Maybe not. Let's see if I can find it up here easily. I will show it to you. Well, I'll at least read it to you. I can't remember where it was. I closed the tab of all the weirdness. Let me see if I can read you what I wrote anyway. Da 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 da. I don't have it. Sorry, folks. All right. It was to a fellow named Nate. I can't recall his channel name, but I'll put it in there. Even a link to his video. I'll find it later for the details. So if you're ever watching quick when I post, you could always come back and look and see the detailed description is updated. But he was saying, it sounded good what he was saying. A lot of people are rejoicing in the hate that fear, that they found. But you don't want to find fear because fear doesn't have power. Let me read my comment because it took a long time to get my thoughts on it, and it was beautiful. I said, Nate, let's be clear. Tetelestai leaves no room for fear. The command to fear is a shadow that vanished when the light appeared. Fear isn't reverence. It's the language of the beast, a deception that never had power and was settled at the cross. From Adam to Jonah, we see the same mistake, humanity treating dread as if it were a holy thing. But God is love, and in him there is no darkness at all. We aren't learning to overcome fear. We are waking up to the fact that it is a lie with no source. The dead is gone. The doors are gone. There's only the bread of life and the table of love. Stop lapping up the void and drink the new wine. You are not a servant in dread. You are a child at the feast. Drink and be free. And then I got excited. I was emotionally quite excited and passionate. And I said, brothers, bust the jars and let the Gideon light of the finished work blind every shadow of dread. When those clay vessels of human effort and religious fear break, the only thing left standing is the I am presence. No more hiding the lamp under the bushel of holy anxiety. It's time to blow the horns and announce that the wall of fear didn't just crack, it collapsed under the weight of Tetelestai. We must love God as he offered the crown of mercy to us. We must first offer it back to him, and then to Adam, and to Cain, and the king's 3 lady who wanted to have the baby cut in half, and Job's friends, and Jonah, and ourselves. For in the kingdom we are all already there. This is a heavenly frequency and the sound of someone tuned to love rather than rebuke by the law. Anyway, I liked it, and I hope somebody will read it and get something out of it someday, and I believe they will, because that somebody's me. Because all the research it took to get all that written, it built me up in my own faith in the Lord and him, what he's finished. So, now we move on to the Daily Bible, and it looks like we're into war, which is fitting for all the war research that I was doing about the chariots and the tank, and that's called Chyros time, the way the Lord manipulates all the books and time and what conversations all have all together. He weaves them to show me he's there right here, that he's holding me. Here's some commentary. Religious apostasy is somewhat undesirable in the age of idolatry and pagan practices. So it is not surprising to see the Israelites repeatedly lapse into spiritual unfaithfulness. What is surprising, however, is the extent to which immorality has grown, particularly among the Benjamites. A grim example is seen when a certain lewd men demand that a hospitable old man turn over a visiting Levite so that they can have homosexual relations with him. Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? We already read about Lot. Oh, I remember when I told my mother that story. It was one of the times. I wish I would have had more time with her. I suppose I'll see her again. When the Levite discovers his concubine dead the next morning, he suddenly feels resentment and sends a part of his concubine's body to each tribe. At this, Israel also becomes incensed, and after several defeats, almost annihilates the tribe of Benjamin. Thus, once again, sin leads to broken relationships and civil strife. Yet there is remnant of goodness remaining, and it manifests itself in concern, which Israel feels when it realizes that part of their national family has almost been destroyed. A valuable lesson in family forgiveness and acceptance despite sin is seen in the lengths to which Israel goes to restore the wayward tribe of Benjamin. Judges 19. In those days Israel had no king. Now a Levite who lived in a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim took a concubine from the Bethlehem in Judah, but she was unfaithful to him. She left him and went back to her father's house in Bethlehem, Judah. After she had been there 4 months, her husband went to her, persuaded her to return. He had with him his servant and 2 donkeys. She took him into her father's house, and when her father saw him, he gladly welcomed him. His father-in-law, the girl's father, prevailed upon him to stay, so he remained with them 3 days, eating and drinking and sleeping there. Boy, these stories all align, don't they? On the 4th day, they got up early and prepared to leave, but the girl's father said to his son-in-law, "Refresh yourself with something to eat, then you can go." So the 2 of them sat down to eat and drink together. Afterward, the girl's father said, "Please stay tonight and enjoy yourself." When the man got up to go, his father-in-law persuaded him, so he stayed there that night. And in the morning of the 5th day, when he rose to go, the girl's father said, "Refresh yourself, wait till afternoon." So the 2 of them ate together. Then when the man with his concubine and his servant got up to leave, his father-in-law, the girl's father, said, "Well, now look, it's almost evening. Spend the night. The day's nearly over. Stay and enjoy yourself. Early tomorrow morning you can get up and be on your way home." Unwilling to stay another night, the man left and went toward Gibeah, that is Jerusalem, with his 2 saddled donkeys and his concubine. When they were near Gibeah, and the day was almost gone, the servant said to his master, "Come, let us stop at the city of the Jebusites and spend the night." His master replied, "No, we won't go into an alien city whose people are not Israelites. We will go on to Gibeah. He added, "Come, let's try to reach Gibeah or Ramah and spend the night in one of those places." So they went on, and the sun set as they neared Gibeah in Benjamin. There they stopped to spend the night. They went and sat in the city square, but no one took them into his home for the night. That evening, an old man from the hill country of Ephraim, who was living in Gibeah, the men of the place were Benjamites, came in from his work in the fields. When he looked and saw the traveler in the city square, the old man asked, "Where are you going? Where'd you come from?" He answered, "We are on our way from Bethlehem in Judah to a remote area in the hill country of Ephraim where I live. I have been to Bethlehem in Judah, and now I am going to the house of the Lord. No one has taken me into his house. We have both straw and fodder for our donkeys, and bread and wine for ourselves, your servants, me, your maidservant, and the young man with us. We don't need anything." "You are welcomed at my house," the old man said. "Let me supply whatever you need. Only don't spend the night in the square." So he took him into the house and fed his donkeys. After they had washed their feet, they had something to eat and drink. I felt like that sounded like a Lot story with the angels, remember? While they were enjoying themselves, some of the wicked men of the city surrounded the house. Pounding on the door, they shouted to the old man who owned the house, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have sex with him." The owner of the house went outside and said to them, "No, my friends, don't be so vile. Since this man is my guest, don't do this disgraceful thing. Look, here's my virgin daughter and his concubine. I will bring them out to you now, and you can use them and do to them whatever you wish. But to this man, don't do such a disgraceful thing." I'm getting chills, they're multiplying. I think I sung that the other day too. But the man would not listen to him. So the man took his concubine and sent her outside to them. They raped her and abused her throughout the night, and at dawn they let her go. At daybreak the woman went back to the house where her master was staying, fell down at the door, and lay until daylight. When her master got up in the morning and opened the door of the house and stepped out to continue on his way, there lay his concubine fallen in the doorway of the house, her hands on the threshold. He said to her, "Get up, let's go." But there was no answer. And the man put her on his donkey and set out for home. When he reached home, he took a knife and cut up his concubines limb by limb into 12 parts, and he sent them into all the areas of Israel. Everyone who saw it said, "Such a thing has never been seen or done, not since the day the Israelites come up out of Egypt. Think about it. Consider it. Tell us what to do." And all the Israelites from Dan to Beersheba and from the land of Gilead came out as one man and assembled before the Lord in Mizpah. The leaders of all the people of the tribes of Israel took their places in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 soldiers armed with swords. The Benjamites heard that the Israelites had gone up to Mizpah. Then the Israelites said, "Tell us how this awful thing happened." So the Levite, the husband of the murdered woman, said, "I and my concubine came to Gibeah in Benjamin to spend the night. During the night, the men in Gibeah came after me and surrounded the house, intending to kill me. They raped my concubine, and she died. I took my concubine, cut her into pieces, and sent one piece to each region of Israel's inheritance, because they committed this lewd and disgraceful act in Israel. Now all you Israelites, speak up and give your verdict." All the people rose as one man, saying, "None of us will go home. No, not one of us will return to his house. But now this is what we'll do to Gibeah. We'll go up against it as the lot directs. We'll take 10 men out of every 100 from all the tribes of Israel, and 100 from 1,000, and 1,000 from 10,000, to get provisions for the army. Then, when the army arrives at Gibeah in Benjamin, it can give them what they deserve for all this vileness done in Israel. So all the men of Israel got together and united as one man against the city. The tribes of Israel sent men throughout the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What about this awful crime that was committed among you? Now surrender those wicked men of Gibeah, so that we may put them to death and purge the evil from Israel." But the Benjamites would not listen to their fellow Israelites. From their towns they came together at Gibeah to fight against the Israelites. At once the Benjamites mobilized 26,000 swordsmen from their towns, in addition to 700 chosen men from those living in Gibeah. Among all these soldiers there were 700 chosen men who were left-handed, each of whom could sling a stone at a hare and not miss a rabbit. Israel, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000 swords, all of them fighting men. The Israelites went up to Bethel and inquired of God. They said, "Who of us shall go first to fight against Benjamites?" The Lord replied, "Judah shall go first." The next morning the Israelites got up and pitched camp near Gibeah. The men of Israel went out to fight the Benjamites and took up battle positions against them at Gibeah. The Benjamites came out of Gibeah and cut down 22,000 Israelites on the battlefield that day. But the men of Israel encouraged one another and again took up their positions where they had stationed themselves the first day. The Israelites went up and wept before the Lord until evening, and they inquired of the Lord. They said, "Shall we go up again to battle against the Benjamites, our brothers?" The Lord answered, "Go up against them." And the Israelites drew near to Benjamin on the second day. This time, when the Benjamites came out from Gibeah to oppose them, they cut down another 18,000 Israelites, all of them armed with swords. And the Israelites, all the people, went to Bethel. And there they sat and weeping before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord. And the Israelites inquired of the Lord. In those days the ark of the covenant of God was there, with Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, ministering before it. And they asked, "Shall we go up again to battle with Benjamin, our brother, or not?" And the Lord responded, "Go, for tomorrow I'll give them into your hands." And Israel set an ambush around Gibeah. They went up against the Benjamites on the third day and took up positions against Gibeah as they had done before. The Benjamites came out to meet them and were drawn away from the city. They began to inflict casualties on the Israelites as before. So about 30 men fell into the open field and on the roads, the one leading to Bethel and the other to Gibeah. While the Benjamites were saying, "We are defeating them as before," the Israelites were saying, "Let us retreat and draw them away from the city to the roads." All the men of Israel moved from their places and took up positions at Baal Tamar. The Israelite ambush charged out of its place on the west of Gibeah. Then 10,000 of Israel's finest men made a frontal attack on Gibeah. The fighting was so heavy that the Benjamites did not realize how near disaster was. The Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel. On that day, the Israelites struck down 25,100 Benjamites, all armed with swords. And the Benjamites saw that they were beaten. Now the men of Israel had given way before Benjamin because they relied on the ambush they had set near Gibeah. The men who had been in ambush made a sudden dash into Gibeah, spread out, and put the whole city to the sword. The men of Israel had arranged with the ambush that they should send up a great cloud of smoke from the city, and then the men of Israel would turn in battle. The Benjamites had begun to inflict casualties on the men of Israel, about 30. And they said, "We are defeating them as in the first battle." But when the column of smoke began to rise from the city of the Benjamites, turned and saw the smoke of the whole city going up into the sky. And then the men of Israel turned on them. The men of Benjamin were terrified, because they realized that the disaster had come upon them, and so they fled before the Israelites in the direction of the desert. But they could not escape the battle. The men of Israel who came out of the towns cut them down there. And they surrounded the Benjamites, chased them easily, overran them in the vicinity of Gibeah on the east. 18,000 Benjamites fell, all of them valiant fighters. As they turned and fled toward the desert to Rock of Rimmon. the Israelites cut down 5,000 men along the roads. They kept pressing after the Benjamites, as far as Gibeah, and struck down 2,000 more. On that day, 25,000 Benjamite swordsmen fell, all of them valiant fighters. For a couple of guys that want to rape somebody, huh? 600 men turned and fled into the desert to the rock of Rimmon, where they stayed 4 months. The men of Israel went back to Benjamin and put all the towns to the sword. Of course, it's the greatest way. Well, what do I know? Including the animals and everything else they found. And all the towns they came across, they set on fire. Well, that's the way to do it, right? I see why the Lord had me read so much about the war and things yesterday. Indeed, I was saying that they should have nuked whoever long time ago before we were ever born. And they wouldn't have to have a forever war anymore, but here we are. Well, the men of Israel had taken an oath at Mizpah. Not one of us will give his daughter in marriage to a Benjamite. People went to Bethel, where they sat before God until evening, raising their voices and weeping bitterly. O Lord, the God of Israel, they cried, why has this happened to Israel? Why should one tribe be missing from Israel today? Early the next day, the people built an altar and presented burnt offerings, the fellowship offerings. And the Israelites asked, who from all the tribes of Israel has failed to assemble before the Lord? For they had taken a solemn oath that anyone who failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah should certainly be put to death. Well, a lot of good it did them. All this putting everything to death like they're trying to follow the law, but they didn't. The Israelites grieved for their brothers and the Benjamites. Today one tribe is cut off from Israel, they said. How can we provide wives for those who are left, since we've taken an oath by the Lord not to give them any of our daughters in marriage? And they asked which one of the tribes of Israel failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah. They discovered that no one from the tribe of Jabesh-Gilead had come to the camp for the assembly. For when they counted the people, they found that none of the people of Jabesh-Gilead were there. So the assembly sent 12,000 fighting men with instructions to go to Jabesh-Gilead, put the sword to those living there, including women and children. Yeah, why not? This is what you do. Oh, this is what you are to do. They said, kill every male and every woman who is not a virgin. And they found among the people living in Jabesh-Gilead 400 young women who had never slept with a man, and they took them to the camp of Shiloh in Canaan. And then the whole assembly sent an offer. I know I ought to keep reading, but you rape one girl, and then you don't want to give up the dudes, and then now you guys' logic is to go kill an entire town and steal the virgin daughters so they could be what? Voluntarily wedded to somebody? Boy, I could tell. They must have just loved it. Anyway, they got 400 of them, young women who had never slept with a man, and they took them up to the camp at Shiloh in Canaan. The whole assembly sent an offer of peace to the Benjamites at the rock of Rimmon. So the Benjamites returned at the time and were given the women of Jabesh-Gilead who had been spared, but there were not enough for all of them. Oh, well, we got more. Go rape and kill some more, then why don't you? People grieved for Benjamin because the Lord had made a gap in the tribes of Israel. And the elders of the assembly said, with the women of Benjamin destroyed, how shall we provide wives for the men who are left? The Benjamite survivors must have heirs. You went and killed them all and stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me. They said, so that a tribe of Israel will not be wiped out, we can't give them our daughters as wives, since we Israelites have taken this oath. Cursed be anyone who gives a wife to a Benjamite. You just gave him 400. Benjamite survivors must have heirs, they said, so the tribe of Israel will not be wiped out. We can't give them our daughters as wives since we Israelites have been, I read it already. But look, there's an annual festival of the Lord in Shiloh. Oh, they're going to add a party. Let's go to a party. To the north of Bethel and the east, I remember this, where they get them drunk or whatever, right? To the north of Bethel and the east of the road goes from Bethel Shechem and the south to Lebanon. So they instructed the Benjamites, saying, go and hide in the vineyards and watch. When the girls of Shiloh come out to join in the dancing, then rush from the vineyards, and each of you seize a wife from the girls of Shiloh and go to the land of Benjamin. You go grabbing a woman out of the vineyard, and then you do whatever. How is that not what happened that you're fighting over? Anyway, go grab one. While they're dancing, each man caught one and carried her off to be his wife, and they returned to their inheritance and rebuilt the towns and settled in them. At that time, the Israelites left that place and went home to their tribes and clans, each to his own inheritance. Commentary and summary. Seems that Israel's moral decline has so affected the people that even honest attempts at goodness are blemished. Oh, blemished. Blemished. Even in the sincere efforts made to forgive and restore the Benjamites, there is an indication that the Israelites have exercised extremely questionable moral judgment. Judgment, you say? As far as their methods were concerned, this entire period of the Canaan conflict is a sad testimony to the relationship between God and man. From a pinnacle of adherence to the law under Moses, as imperfect as their obedience was, even then, the nation of Israel has sunk to a low ebb in which moral authority is no higher than self-will. The inspired record sums it up with a disappointing epitaph. Judges 21 and 25. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as he saw fit. Well, it's finished. We must trust in the Lord that it all has its purpose. Thank Him that that's not us. That it's not us being raped and killed, and it's not us being the fools doing the raping and killing, I hope. But living and being a part of this society, I'm sure I could find a way to connect everybody, because I have that gift. Be working on it. Oh, pray for me. I'll be all right. And you'll enjoy the show, and I'll be back with another one sooner than you think.